I'll give you a couple quick facts about New York City back in during the time of the American Revolution, 1776. Now, I think you know probably prior to the American Revolution why they call Wall Street Wall Street. Actually, it was a wall by the Dutch, defensive wall. That's really what it was. But by the time the American Revolution came about, New York City was already pretty much established as like a financial district. I think Manhattan Bank was also financed by fees that they charged on a roadway that went through some property by some bigwigs that they charged money for a toll for the road, and they helped finance the bank. And it's always been a center of finance, even going way back before the American Revolution. Not a large global center of finance, but it was a center of finance. Now, interesting, I'm going to get to a point right here. During the time of the colonial American Revolution in 1776 to 1783, what happened was anybody that was disloyal to the crown often had their property seized, and such was the case, right? You know, if you were if you were one of the revolutionaries, you know, you were done. But in New York State, properties were seized. In New York City, very few properties were seized. And of the few properties that were seized in New York City by the English crown, they were usually merchantmen. They were not the upper crust aristocracy. And also remember that the Commander Clinton of the British, the overall commander, actually he did not come to the aid of General Howe when he was General Cornwallis, when Cornwallis was being surrounded by Washington and mainly the French Army and Navy, Great Navy, the French. He did not come to their aid because he was actually carousing around in high society with, you know, the women and living in luxury in the big main houses in New York. New York has always been connected to the European aristocracy, even during the time of the American Revolution. So small wonder that things have not continued today. So if you're looking at all the policies they're basically against the native-born peasants of the United States, we'll just call it that. Well, you really know why. It doesn't just start with the 30s or the 1800s. It's never changed. Actually, you know, the big, like they said, the big red flag out there that says New York has always been in with the global European aristocracy is that the aristocracy in New York City, the American aristocrats or the American financial oligarchs in New York, never had their property touched, even though it was the most valuable property in all the colonies. That's because they always stayed loyal to the crown all throughout the war, and it's been continuing since that. And actually that's partially one of the reasons for the divide between the North and the South. You can see, you know, a pattern that was been going on here, but it's really never changed. And when we broke away in 1776, actually there was Jay's Treaty, which came about after that, and also the War of 1812, which actually we lost, believe it or not. But we finally were truly separated from the British. But then nefarious elements started coming into being, mainly with the Republican Party back in the mid-1800s. The Republican Party back in the mid-1800s is basically similar to the Socialist Democratic Party of today. You know, it's like the ideological foundations of the parties almost flipped, you know, inverted. One took on the other, you know, each other, more or less. Not exactly, though. We actually never have, actually since the war between the states, we've never had real freedom. You know, it's been encroached on us ever since then. But if you look at a lot of the policies that are going on in politics, you know, if you look at where they're being financed from, it's from New York. You know, you could say it's the politicians or whatever, but it's always the money that's controlling things, you know. Like, I don't even want to mention all the names because I know I'm on a platform that's probably advertised by the elite, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I can mention the names. I mean, of course, you know about the Council on Foreign Relations, but also even the Institute for Policy Studies in New York, which Clinton was to be a member of, which is a Marxist think tank, believe it or not. So, there's a lot of stuff out there. But the situation hasn't changed, and you know, it's really all about total control. You know, you can talk about, you know, these different isms, whatever the hell it is, but really what the bottom line of it is, it's total control. And the only people that are really capable of being free They have to be intelligent enough to be free. It's a freaking sad fact. But you need the intellect to be free. You need the intellect and a personal responsibility and a moral fortitude to be free. You know, it's like, it just can't happen with people that don't have these attributes. That's just how it is. That's the reality situation. So, you know, basically, if there's a class of people with 150 IQ that have good moral values and they have wisdom and common sense, well, maybe the informal oligarchy of those type of people might be okay. But then if they're motivated by money, forget about it. I can tell you one guy who's not in our favor, Jeff Bezos. Oh God. And Bloomberg, you know, so it seems like the more money they have, they're pretty much going right back to the time of 1776 when the aristocracy that were in the colonies, they were against us. They were against us, we the people. Always have been. That's why, even though they had the most money, the most lucrative properties, the British left it untouched. And General Clinton, who was the overall British commander at the time, near the end of the war, he lived it up high on the hog within the New York mansions and aristocracy and the social scenes. Well, of course, General Cornwallis got surrounded by the great armies of France and its navy and the American revolutionaries. But actually, if it wasn't for France, Cornwallis would have busted out of there no problem. So, anyway, little known fact. The problem with New York has been going back since the inception of this country. And if you look at the way things are, and you just look back maybe 150 years ago, in the way it is today, it's not too much of a stretch of imagination to think that it goes back another 100 years past that. So, anyway, facts are facts, but the thing is, the public doesn't know most of the facts.